Early one quiet morning on a small countryside farm, something unusual caught the farmer's eye. A hen had just hatched a clutch of tiny, fragile chicks. They peeped softly, wobbling on thin legs, still learning how to exist in the wide world. The hen, as expected, hovered nearby, clucking and fluffing her feathers, but then something completely unexpected happened. A group of kittens, barely a few weeks old themselves, wandered over and sat down beside the chicks. Instead of chaos or danger, what followed was a scene so gentle and surprising that it felt almost unreal. At first, the hen froze. Every instinct told her to protect her babies. Kittens were not supposed to be trusted. They were playful, unpredictable, and known for chasing anything that moved. The hen spread her wings slightly, ready to defend her chicks if needed. But the kittens did not pounce. They did not chase. They simply sat there, watching the chicks with wide, curious eyes. One of the smallest chicks stumbled and fell onto its side. Before the hen could react, a tiny gray kitten leaned forward and gently nudged the chick back onto its feet with its nose. The movement was slow, careful, almost thoughtful. The chick peeped, shook itself, and continued walking. The kitten sat back, looking oddly proud, as if it had done something important. The farmer stood still, afraid to interrupt the moment. What he was seeing challenged everything he thought he knew about animal behavior. The kittens seemed to understand that these little creatures were fragile and needed care. They didn't treat the chicks like toys. They treated them like responsibility. As the minutes passed, the scene grew even more touching. The chicks began to wander farther from their mother, drawn by curiosity. Each time one strayed too far, a kitten would gently block its path, using a paw like a soft barrier. No claws came out, no rough movements followed, just calm, careful guidance, as if the kittens had appointed themselves guardians. The hen watched closely, her head tilted from side to side, eyes sharp, body tense. But gradually, her posture softened. She lowered her wings and stopped clucking anxiously. It was as if she realized that, for reasons she could not understand, these kittens were not a threat. In fact, they were helping. The most surprising part was how naturally it all seemed to happen. No one trained the kittens. No one told them to be gentle. Yet somehow, they knew. Animals are often guided by instincts we don't fully understand. In this case, the kittens' nurturing side had surfaced, overpowering their playful impulses. As the sun climbed higher, the ground warmed. The chicks grew tired and began to huddle together. The hen moved closer, ready to gather them under her wings. But before she could, one of the kittens lay down beside the group. Its body formed a warm, furry wall. The chicks instinctively leaned against it, pressing their tiny bodies into the soft fur. The hen hesitated. This was her role. This was what she was meant to do. Yet the chicks seemed calm, safe, and comfortable. After a moment of uncertainty, she settled down nearby instead of on top of them, keeping a watchful eye while allowing the kittens to continue. What unfolded over the next hour felt like a lesson in unexpected kindness. The kittens took turns lying near the chicks, providing warmth. When one kitten grew restless and tried to play, another seemed to swat it gently, as if saying, "Not now." Their behavior showed restraint far beyond their age. The farmer later said that this moment changed the way he saw animals. Humans often divide animals into categories: predators and prey, dangerous and harmless, smart and simple. But nature doesn't always follow those lines. Sometimes, compassion appears where we least expect it. The hen, once suspicious, began to trust the kittens more. She stopped reacting every time they moved. Instead, she focused on finding food, knowing that her chicks were not alone. In a strange twist, the kittens were doing what hens are supposed to do: protect, guide, and comfort. As days passed, this unlikely family continued to grow closer. The chicks followed the kittens around the yard, peeping happily as they waddled behind their furry friends. The kittens, in turn, walked slowly, adjusting their pace so the chicks could keep up. If a chick fell behind, a kitten would stop and wait. Visitors to the farm couldn't believe their eyes. Phones came out, videos were recorded, and smiles spread across faces. People whispered things like, "This can't be real," and, "I've never seen anything like this." Yet there it was, happening naturally, without force or fear. The hen still played her role. She fed her chicks, taught them where to scratch the ground, and warned them of danger. But now she wasn't alone. The kittens had become an extra layer of care, an unexpected support system. What makes this story so powerful is not just its cuteness, but what it represents. It reminds us that care and empathy are not limited by species. The idea that only a hen can care for chicks, or only a cat can care for kittens, suddenly feels too narrow. Nature is more flexible, more surprising, and more beautiful than that. There is something deeply comforting about seeing animals break the rules we think govern them. In a world where conflict often feels inevitable, moments like this offer hope. They show us that gentleness can overcome instinct, and that kindness can appear in the most unlikely places. As the chicks grew stronger, they became more independent. They didn't need constant warmth anymore. The kittens returned to more typical kitten behavior, chasing leaves and tumbling over each other. But even then, they remained careful around the chicks, as if a quiet bond still existed. The hen, once shocked and defensive, now seemed calm around the kittens. She no longer saw them as strangers. She had witnessed their care, their patience, and their gentleness. Trust had replaced fear. This story spread far beyond the farm. People shared it not just because it was adorable, but because it made them feel something. It reminded them of a softer side of life, a side that often gets overshadowed by noise and negativity. In the end, no one could say for sure why the kittens behaved the way they did. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was instinct, maybe it was something even simpler, a natural response to vulnerability. Whatever the reason, the result was unforgettable. The hen was surprised, yes. But perhaps we were the most surprised of all. Watching kittens take care of chicks better than hens challenges our assumptions and opens our hearts. It tells us that kindness doesn't always come from where we expect it, and that sometimes, the world is far more gentle than we give it credit for. As the days turned into a week, the bond between the kittens and the chicks deepened in ways no one on the farm could have predicted. What began as a moment of curiosity slowly transformed into a routine built on trust. Every morning, as the first light touched the yard, the chicks would emerge from their resting place and immediately look around, not just for their mother, but for the kittens as well. And without fail, the kittens were there, stretching lazily, blinking in the sunlight, ready to resume their unusual duty. The hen noticed this change. Her chicks were no longer frantic when she stepped a short distance away. They seemed calmer, more confident, as if they knew they were protected from all sides. This confidence allowed them to explore more freely. They scratched the earth, chased tiny insects, and practiced flapping their small wings, all while the kittens kept a quiet watch nearby. One afternoon, a sudden noise echoed across the yard. A bucket fell, crashing loudly against the ground. The chicks panicked, scattering in different directions. The hen rushed forward, clucking loudly, trying to gather them. But before she could reach all of them, the kittens reacted. Two of them quickly moved to block the chicks from running too far, while another sat firmly beside a chick that had frozen in fear. The kitten didn't move, didn't touch, just stayed close, offering silent reassurance. That moment sealed everything. The hen no longer questioned their presence. She saw clearly now. These kittens were not playing at care, they understood it. From that day on, she allowed them to remain close, even during feeding times. She would peck at the ground, calling her chicks, while the kittens sat nearby, making sure none wandered off too far. The farmer began adjusting his daily routine just to observe this extraordinary relationship. He noticed how the kittens learned boundaries. They never stepped on the chicks, never swatted them during play. When excitement got the better of one kitten, another would intervene, gently pushing it away. It was as if they had developed their own set of rules built around protection. Interestingly, the kittens themselves seemed to grow emotionally through this experience. They became calmer, more patient than other kittens their age. Instead of constant rough play, they often chose to sit quietly beside the chicks. When they did play, it was softer, more controlled. Caring for something smaller and weaker had changed them. Visitors to the farm continued to arrive. Some came out of curiosity, others out of disbelief. Children sat quietly on the grass, watching wide-eyed as kittens and chicks moved together like a tiny community. Parents smiled, some even tearing up at the sight. In a world filled with harsh lessons, this gentle scene felt like a gift. As time went on, the chicks began to grow feathers, their movements becoming steadier and stronger. They no longer needed constant warmth, yet they still chose to rest beside the kittens. At times, a chick would climb clumsily over a kitten's tail and settle near its chest. The kitten would barely react, simply adjusting slightly to make space. The hen, now fully relaxed, used this time to teach her chicks essential survival skills. She showed them how to recognize food, how to listen for danger, and when to stay still. The kittens, surprisingly, became part of these lessons. When the hen gave a warning sound, the kittens froze as well, reinforcing the behavior. The chicks learned faster because they were watching multiple examples at once. One evening, as the sky darkened and the temperature dropped, something remarkable happened. Instead of the chicks huddling under the hen alone, the kittens curled up around them, forming a warm circle. The hen settled beside them, not on top, but close enough to watch. It was no longer hen versus kittens. It was a shared space, a shared responsibility. The farmer realized then that this wasn't just a cute moment, it was a rare lesson in coexistence. Nature, often described as cruel or competitive, was showing another side. Cooperation, care, emotional intelligence. As weeks passed, the chicks began to resemble young chickens. Their voices deepened, their bodies grew stronger, and their curiosity expanded beyond the yard. The kittens, now bigger and more confident, followed them on longer walks. Together, they explored new corners of the farm, always staying within a safe distance. The bond didn't fade as the chicks grew. It evolved. The kittens no longer needed to guard every step, but they remained aware. If a strange sound appeared, they were alert. If something unfamiliar moved nearby, they positioned themselves between it and the birds without aggression, just presence. The hen watched all of this with quiet wisdom. She had learned something too. Protection did not always have to come from force or fear. Sometimes, it came from patience and shared understanding. This story spread online far beyond the small farm. People shared it not just because it was adorable, but because it challenged their beliefs. It asked a simple yet powerful question: if animals can overcome instinct to care for one another, why do humans struggle so much? Comments poured in from around the world. Some said the story restored their faith in kindness. Others said it reminded them of the innocence they felt as children. Many simply said it made their day better. In the end, nothing dramatic or tragic happened. There was no sudden danger, no forced separation. Life simply continued, gently and beautifully. The chicks grew into healthy chickens. The kittens grew into calm, confident cats. And though their lives slowly took different paths, the early bond they shared left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. The hen was no longer surprised. She was grateful, and those who saw this unlikely family understood something important. Care is not limited by nature, size, or species. Sometimes, the best caregivers are the ones you least expect. This wasn't just a story about kittens and chicks. It was a quiet reminder that kindness is universal, and when it appears, even in the smallest corners of the world, it has the power to change how we see everything.